On 7th May 2023, a 49-year-old pawn shop owner succumbed to his injuries after a speeding car hit his bike from behind at Devidas Lane, Borivali West in Mumbai. The victim, Subhash Tatera, was on his way home after shutting his shop when the incident occurred. Sachin Tatera, Subhash's younger brother, who also runs a pawn shop, said in his police complaint that when he reached the spot 15 minutes after the crash, he saw that his brother's bike was completely damaged and he was lying by the roadside. The police registered a case of rash and negligent driving and culpable homicide against the accused. Speeding is the number one cause of road crashes in India, coupled with risky behavior such as underage driving and drunk driving, among others, leading to grave consequences. Hence, unfortunately, cases like these are quite common and have been the cause of many innocent lives lost. Welcome to Milestones, the Save Life podcast with me, Karthik Nagarajan. This is a show where we discuss various aspects of road safety with the aim of ultimately working towards safer roads and a safer India. I'm your host, Karthik Nagarajan. And today on the show, we're joined by Ms. Shilpa Mittal. Ms. Mittal lost her brother, Siddharth Mittal, in 2016 on Delhi's Shamnath Marg to a road crash involving a juvenile driving speeding luxury car. Ever since, Shilpa has relentlessly led a crusade against underage driving. Her actions have significantly contributed towards deterrent norms, such as steep penalties and the provision to hold guardians of juvenile drivers or vehicle owners responsible for road crashes. Also joining us is Dr. Madhur Uniyal. Dr. Uniyal is associated in various capacities with AIMS Rishikesh, where he is Associate Professor at the Department of Trauma Surgery and Critical Care, in charge Heli Emergency Medical System or HEMS, and Course Director Advanced Trauma Life Support or ATLS. He also advises the government on building heli emergency medical systems. Ms. Mittal and Dr. Unyal, welcome to the show. Dr. Unyal, I would like to start with you. From your experience, how frequent are road crash injuries and what do they mostly comprise of? Do the crash victims belong to a certain identifiable demographic in your experience?
Hi, Karthik. See, injuries are caused because of trauma, right? And there are various causes of trauma. And now we are talking about injuries related to road traffic accidents. So when we talk about injuries related to road traffic accidents, almost 45% to 50% of all the injuries, they occur on the roads. So you can imagine there are various mechanisms of injuries. There can be fall from height. There can be physical assault. Somebody gets burned. Somebody gets drowning. There's a intentional self-harm attempt or something. So out of all these various forms of injuries, injuries alone due to road traffic injuries comprise up to 50% of injuries, which is a very huge number. And when we talk about numbers and we talk about injuries in India, which is relevant to us, around 5 lakh accidents they take place every year, in which around 1.7 lakh people die. And to come to your second question, that is whether they have a demographic inclination or not. Yes, they definitely do. Somehow, the first thing is the sex. Trauma loves male people, and injury in males is twice as much as that in females, and the only age group exception is 0 to 9 years, probably, in which behaviors of both the sexes are almost just the same. So it's the predilection is high, very high in males. And if you think of the section of the society which is mostly affected by the age groups, which is mostly affected, is the age group which goes out of the home in search of either livelihood for their family or goes out of the home to study. This is the basic productive age group of the society, that is young adults and young adolescents and adults. So say around in 18 years to 55 years, around 83% of injuries occur in this age group. So that demographics and is very well established by the studies and by the evidence which we have in literature in occurring in India.
Thanks, Doctor. Those are chilling numbers. And every time we discuss numbers in India, I also remind myself that this is what is visible and this is what is measurable. And the reality will only be higher than this. Ms. Mittal, You've lived through a harrowing experience of losing a family member to a road crash. And it is almost sometimes unreasonable to ask, but will you be okay for the benefit of the people who are listening to this? Will you be okay to recount what exactly happened?
Yeah, sure. Actually, it was 4th of April 2016 when I was in Bombay that time and I got a call at around 10 o'clock from my mother, very panicky, that Siddhi has met with an accident. So the first thought is like, he's a young boy, strong, he's been a sports athlete and stuff. So I was like, how bad it could be. So we just got a call and we didn't know much about it. And within, I think, half an hour, we came to know that he is no more. So since that day till today, I don't think so. I have been able to accept what has happened. I mean, it's just a shock that we still live it. And later on, when we started working on it, we came to realize that it was a juvenile who was driving the car. He was at the speed of around 100 kilometers per hour, where he hit my brother on the road. And it, I mean, after that, it has just been a downward spiral. It's a huge and a very, 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 very long journey that we have started working on, which we didn't choose, of course. My brother's postmortem report is the most scariest report I've ever read. Honestly speaking, when I saw him, I I still remember when I went there. I didn't have guts to also see him in you know, in the hospital because I was not up for it. I didn't know what I was going to look. So I just saw his one side because the second side was completely damaged. So yeah, it's terrible, and you live through it.
Thank you for sharing that. I can't even imagine, what you have gone through at that point and what you're continue to do right now. And thank you for sharing this for the benefit of the rest of this world. And it's extraordinarily inspiring. And we'll come to that in a bit. That you're able to channel, this emotion into something as constructive, as what you've done. But if you have to, as someone who's gone through something as unimaginably terrible as this, what advice would you have for individuals and families who are also dealing with something similar, especially when it comes to physical recovery and also emotional healing? What would you like to tell other families going through this?
See, honestly speaking, as I said, you don't ever recover. Your life is never same. You are never same as an individual. You can never recover from something so tragic. I have, honestly speaking, never seen the video of the incident which has happened. I mean, it's online, and so far I've managed not to see that video. For the one reason that I have great memories with my brother. I haven't been able to pull myself together to watch him die. It's a video that actually killed him. So no, you don't recover, and you are never same as a person. But I can do only two things. I can fight for justice, or I can just take revenge. Revenge is not an option for me. That's not, as Gandhiji said, eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. But we have to correct somewhere. I chose the other path, just to take, the right path, as we call it, to make people more responsible and to show the world. Actually, I run a Facebook page for the same so that people know what you go through individually. I personally would advise to, channel your energies in the right direction. Do something out of it. Maybe do something for the betterment of a society. So that what I went through, my only effort is that what I went through, nobody else should go through. Sadly, that is not it happening. It's still there's a lot of unawareness, and still people are taking it very, very lightly and not really being responsible. But there's an effort that we all can try. That's all. Because obviously, because it has happened to me. Otherwise, I was also as ignorant as anybody else. That we know around us. Unless it hits you, it never hits you really.
Ms. Mittal, thank you so much again. And I think to your point about people taking this seriously, I think a conversation like this will go a long way in changing people's perspectives. Dr. Uniyal, after passage of the Motor Vehicles Amendment Act in 2019 and the extended COVID-19 lockdown that we've witnessed across the country in 2020 and 2021, has there been any reduction in certain types of road cases since last year, for example? Have you seen any reduction, for example, in head injury cases as the helmet wearing rate might have gone up, something like that?
See, I mean, this act was actually long awaited. I mean, it really gives a lot of things. It increased the number of punishments. It set the owners from the minor to the owner of the car. It is a wonderful thing, but there are many confounding factors. First, let me tell you my opinion. Has it decreased? Yes, in my opinion, yes. But to say that it has statistically significantly decreased, or we can say we'll still need more time, because say this was passed in September 2019, and after that, so after that, 1 year later, just a few 6 months later, there was COVID, and as COVID, there were lockdown and everything, and also the totality deaths due to trauma decreased. And not just COVID, also you must realize that we India is getting motorized at a very fast pace. For example, if you say we have 300 million registered motor vehicles today on our streets, and 24 millions of them were only in 2019. So the numbers have gone up very significantly as well. So to say whether the injuries have decreased, because yes, they have decreased, but then there was COVID, and then there are confounding factors like increase in registration. So we'll have to wait 1 or 2 more years to say whether this law has brought a significant change or not. In my opinion, without being statistically significant, I think it's working. It has brought a change.
I have a corollary question also to this, which is you live in one of the capitals of religious travel, in India. On the other side, has it also increased, during peak seasons like the Char Dham Yatra?
See, Karthik, that is one of the things which we have to understand. For example, if you think, when we talk about an increase, we should have a baseline. So from this time, before, there was no baseline. There was no data about how many deaths and deaths due to what during Char Dham Yatras and all. And this year onwards, government, along with I'm also a part of the team, we have started collecting the data, that how many people have died and what have been their causes, whether those deaths were preventable or not. So we'll be having some data to work upon from now. But yes, if you are speaking in terms of other cold months, deaths during Char Dham Yatra, road traffic accidents and all, they're definitely higher. More so that these places are the places which are not used to seeing so much of footfall. For example, today morning, I think there has been an avalanche in Hemkund Sahib, and there are many people who are there. So these people go only in these seasons. So definitely, rate of trauma increases during the Char Dhams and seasons like Hemkund Yatra and all.
A Good Samaritan can be an extremely important link for ensuring immediate aid and help in the case of a road crash. In December 2022, when a very famous Indian cricketer met with a road crash on the Delhi-Roorkee highway, two Good Samaritans stepped up to help and rescue him from his burning vehicle. As per reports, the two men were identified as Sushil Kumar and Paramjit. The duo was returning from Haridwar and saw a damaged vehicle on the road. Sushil immediately stopped his bus and helped the cricketer get out of his damaged SUV. He and Paramjit then wrapped the cricketer in a shawl in a bid to keep him warm. Thereafter, they called the police and the ambulance. The duo was later felicitated as Good Samaritans. Having Good Samaritans on the road can indeed save lives. Dr. Uniyal, what role can bystanders and passers-by play in helping ensure that an injured person receives the required medical assistance, especially in time? Has there been any change in this post the institutionalization of the Good Samaritan Law in 2016?
So coming to your first question, that what can bystanders do? I mean, bystanders anywhere in the world can do a lot, but in India they can do even more. Let me tell you why. When you talk about deaths because of road traffic injuries, it's a trimodal distribution of death. There are two peaks which occur in first 3 hours, and then there's a peak which occurs in weeks to days. You'll be surprised to know that these first two peaks occur within 3 hours of injury. And talking practically, which place in India, even in Delhi, the patient reaches a qualified doctor within 3 hours and that intervention is taken place? Almost never. So these 3 hours are very important. Where is where is the patient in these 3 hours? Patient is on the mercy of the bystanders, the people sitting by, people passing through. You're right. So, and what do they need to do? I don't think so that even there are incidences where people say that bystanders did not intervene or something. I think more than the thought behind is they are not equipped with knowledge of what to do. They don't know that if I do something, then things can change. They are only worried about police, and they're worried about calling, and they're worried about getting into legal hassles and all. But if they knew that just by putting my hand somewhere, this patient's life could be saved, I think they will do that. Basically, we are all a good people. But when we don't know what to do, when we are overwhelmed by things, we don't take an action. So only by taking care of few things. First, airway, we call it air. That if somebody is down, you clear his airway. B, breathing. You see whether his breathing is fine. You open his close properly. C, circulation. If you see somewhere it's bleeding properly, you just put a hand there. Disability, seeing whether the patient is having any neurological problems, or whether he's opening his eyes, his tongue is falling back or not. All those things. These simple things. If anybody knows this, and this is not a rocket science, it can be taught to somebody within 3 or 4 hours. If somebody knows this, there is a hell a lot of difference. The basic care provided by bystander can be much more life saving. I mean, he can be the actual hero in the entire process. Karthik, coming to the second part of your question, how did Good Samaritan law help? I mean, I should tell you that I've realized it in a very different way. Obviously, I don't have any objective data. In 2019, I shifted from AIMS Delhi to AIMS Rishikesh, right? And in AIMS Delhi, the patient was brought to the hospital most of the times, or I must say, I fail to remember any other time where the patient was brought by a bystander. It was either the police or the family members. Somebody called the family members, they came and they brought the patient, or the police or the CATS ambulance or whatever you call it. When I came to Rishikesh, I realized, oh, fine. I mean, wonderful. Bystanders are getting them here. So the first thought came in my mind that, Delhi population is insensitive as advertised, like with Nirbhaya and recently. So I said, okay, fine. Delhi is very fast and insensitive. But later on, it dawned on me that it was the same time when Good Samaritan law was there. So now talking to people, I've realized that they are less afraid. They know more about that they'll be getting into less legal hassles, and probably it was insensitive part was not that much, that the security provided by the Good Samaritan law. I mean, it has played its role. If I say that whether it is perfect or it is adequate, it is to our satisfaction, no. The education about this law, education about this Good Samaritan law has still to be. I think I talk to almost all of my patients who come about bystanders. Do you know about this? Do you know about this? But yes, it has to be propagated more. It has to be propagated more. People should know more about it. There's still scope of people understanding about this law so that they can come forwards and help the victim.
But I'm glad that at least at your end, someone like you is seeing some change,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
significant change, in something like this, which is that one ray of hope, that we need in a conversation like this. Ms. Mittal, you embarked, upon the journey to make roads safer through making juveniles and their guardians more responsible for their road safety related actions. You also spoke about the group, that you're curating on different platforms. How has this journey been for you largely?
Oh, it's a difficult one, of course. Emotionally, very, very draining, without saying that goes. But I mean, there are, I personally believe there are good and bad people both in the world. So, and I do believe there are bad people too. I mean, as a society, Indian society, I think we lack a lot of compassion nowadays, you know, especially in our case, for example, when we came to know, see, whatever happened that night, if it was me or it was committed by me, something like that would have happened by me, from my car or something. I would have definitely gone and met the family. I would have definitely done. That is the least I can do. I have literally, killed somebody, for God's sake. I would have at least met the family. I would have at least said sorry. Obviously, your sorry is not going to make a dead man alive. That's a fact. But at least there's a compassion that's required. I think we lack that a lot nowadays. When about the Good Samaritan law as well. I think when one person goes it, you just need that one person to change this, that moment. So when person comes running, everybody else wants to help. But when nobody comes, then nobody goes. That's very strange. We are like ants, we just follow. So I think all this information, of to do right was taught to us when we were in school. I think that has been misplaced somewhere. The civic sense. I remember the most boring subject for us used to be civics when we were in school. I realized, and civics had the thinnest book ever, if you remember your school
Yeah.
books, right? I think that should be the biggest and the thickest book because that is what is missing in the society. That where do you learn what to do right? Because the society is definitely not teaching you. The social media is definitely very busy with reels which are not very important. So where do you learn the right and wrong? How do you discriminate? Because like in our case, the parents were giving the car to the boy at 11. Who's gonna say no to him when the parents are saying yes to him? So who's gonna teach him right and wrong? The school did not stop. The society did not stop. The house did not stop. So where is he gonna learn the right and the wrong?
To make our roads safer, preventive interventions can produce good outcomes when applied to five well known risk factors: high speed, driving under the influence of alcohol, non usage of proper helmets, non usage of wearing seatbelts, and non usage of child restraint systems. Along with this, a robust policy framework is crucial for enhancing road safety in India. Effective enforcement mechanisms can deter such unsafe behaviors. Ms. Mittal, from your experience, and from whatever you've seen of others, by your view engaging, with this community, what further changes are necessary to make our roads safer?
I think to begin with, as you said, charity begins at home. I think it's the first thing is to start at home because we take road safety very casually. The chalta and attitude that we carry with everything is also there in the cars and the roads. I mean, if when you're driving or you're riding a bike or even when you're walking on the roads, like I really tell people when we are walking to walk on the footpath because I mean, my brother died crossing the road, but I still get very scared about other people too. I think, like in foreign, your insurance policy lapse if you're walking on the road and you died. You have to be on the pavement, unless it's like a red um, signal that you've crossed or the car has hit you, then it's a different story. But if you are jaywalking, as they call it, you don't get insurance. I think something like that would also give us, a motive to be. See, unless I have realized one thing, unless something hits your pocket, we don't care about anything. Like when the Motor Vehicle Act came up with high fines, I was like, I think it should be more than that now because people don't care unless it hits their pocket. 5,000 rupees challan is something, it just opens their eyes and they're like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. I shouldn't cross the signal. Oh my God, I shouldn't, I should wear seatbelt. It's not because they want to save their own lives. That's the most craziest part. They don't care about their own safety. I think law is there, but I think the implementation which lacks. I have literally stopped kids driving on the road and told them get your parents, and I've spoken to their parents. Literally, I've done it couple of times, even civil lines. I was like, you cannot do this. You might kill somebody. Your son might kill somebody. How are you giving them cars? How are you giving them in a kinetic? Somebody will break their hand, somebody will break their head. A simple injury can spoil somebody's life forever. People don't realize this. It's scary. I mean, my brother passed away, but if he would have sustained those injuries and been alive, he would have been like a vegetable, the state that he was in. Can you imagine living with somebody like that? It's it's torturous for that human being to be alive in that kind of a situation, and it's traumatic for the family to see their loved one in that kind of a vegetable state. Imagine. And I know a lot of cases who have not been compensated and who are paying through their noses for those accidents. So I think it's not just a very small thing. There are a lot of repercussion for your simplest, smallest action. That मैं सब्जी लाने गाड़ी में गया था and something happened, you know. It's not that. You might end up killing somebody, you might end up injuring somebody for life. These are heavy machines, and nowadays with the speeds, I want to even, I can talk about this topic forever, but it's just, I want to also want to request the car companies, when the speed limit in India is only 100 and something odd 100. Why
Yeah.
do we have
Yeah.
cars which run at 300 kilometers? Why are they passing
Yeah.
such cars in the country? Why? I mean, obviously, I have a BMW running in a smallest lane in our area itself at the speed of 100. I mean, it's a lane where it's a single lane where both the side cars are parked. It's only one car which can pass, and it's going at the speed of 100. Obviously, you're going to kill somebody.
The point you made, Ms. Mittal, it's something that's been bothering me for many, many years now, where, we glorify automobiles, in reviews, in ads, etc., which are for the large part illegal, at those speeds in most parts of the country, right? It's a discussion for another day, but it's a very important point to make. I also, as you were talking about insurance and jaywalking in the beginning of your answer, just thinking that it makes a lot of sense in a city, say, for example, like Singapore, right, where everything is structured. So jaywalking comes across as something that's not necessary, right? But in India, where people have to walk sometimes, 400, 500 meters to find a zebra crossing or an overhead bridge, jaywalking is often inevitable, isn't it? Dr. Uniyal, just to bring this discussion, to a logical conclusion, um, but in summary, as a country, where do we stand with regard to availability of emergency care services? What more do you feel is needed urgently when it comes to ensuring better access to emergency services?
So to answer the first thing, where do we stand? We stand on the pretty bottom part of the food chain, or whatever you call it. Are we developing? Yes, we are developing. Is there any motion ahead? Yes, there is motion ahead. Is the motion according to the pace which we want? No, it is not. We definitely have to do more, but hope is there. In last few years, things have taken turn for good, but the pace is still to be required. The first thing I would want to say is, like, what should change from a medical perspective, from a doctor who deals with trauma and who also thinks about the medical part. Obviously, the society thinks of the preventive part first, but we have an additional responsibility to look from. See, injury has not been given a status of disease in this country. Like Shilpa rightly said, that it is considered to be an accident. It is considered to be an act of God. So when there is allocation of funds, when there is allocation of policies, when there is, the plans are made, accidents are over. Most of the times they're overlooked. We'll talk about fancy diseases like HIV. We'll talk about heart diseases, and we'll talk about rare cancers and stuff like that. But if you see in the younger population, trauma kills more people than these combined together. Trauma has the more premature deaths, compared to any other disease. And like any other disease, they have agent, host, and environment. The environment, like you talked about, the bad payments and all those things, the agent, the car, and the host, the victim. And it has trends like a disease has, it has a resolution like disease has, and it has rehabilitation like a disease has. So the first thing that has the message that has to be sent is, it has to be given a status of disease. The day it will be given the status of disease, we will realize the underlying problem. We'll realize COVID killed a lot of patients. Let me tell you, in 2-3 years, trauma is going to kill more patients than COVID, right? But everybody, funds came for COVID, people geared up for COVID, everything. There is a serious pandemic every day because of trauma. because of road traffic injuries in the country, and we are not giving it the proper designation, the proper definition of a disease. So it has to be elevated to that level. Second thing which you said is what immediately could have been done. I mean, immediately, see, it everything has to take place in different spheres in simultaneously. There has to be developments in capacity building, that is like manpower training, infrastructure, and organization. All these three things have to go hand in hand. When I talk about capacity building, I totally believe this, and 85% of our problems can be solved without spending money. Only by capacity building and intention, changing the outlook of the society to this problem. 85%. We don't need fancy equipment to save these patients. We need timely interventions. We need people to be trained for it, what to do. We need to have processes in place, which number to call. So capacity building, in my view, is the first thing that should be done. It should be started right from the elementary school, and definitely process earlier. When you talk of infrastructure, we have infrastructures. There's no dearth of infrastructure in Delhi. There's no dearth of infrastructure in the bigger metros of the country. So far, so that for health, our friends abroad, they come to India because they don't get appointments there, they don't get surgery, and it's very costly. They come to India for their surgery. So in metros, there's definitely infrastructure available. But what is not available there is organization, the protocols, what will happen, how will this patient reach, and not just one VIP patient. Any patient should have that right to reach the doctor suited for him. That distance, that difference should be minimized. So that processes are even lacking in our metros, or you call the bigger cities of India. And eventually, it has to be an inclusive system. Inclusive system means, like Shilpa said, for people get into vegetable state, and for one death, I must tell you, there are 70 people injured in which the life is not lost, but they leave them with a disability. So what about these people? So what about a security guard who meets an accident? Now he has no training for any other thing. He cannot do anything else. So what about the social rehabilitation? What about to get him into the normal society, make him a good, productive individual, right? Who is contributing to the society, who is not a burden to the society. So right from the accident side to the in-hospital care and rehabilitation as a socially responsible person, all these things have to be taken care of. That is what I feel.
Thank you both for an extraordinarily insightful conversation. Thank you, Ms. Mittal, especially you, for revisiting your harrowing journey for this purpose. That brings us to the end of another episode of Milestones, the Save Life podcast. My name is Karthik Nagarajan. If you have been tuning in and feel that road safety deserves way more attention than it gets, please do consider sharing this episode with your family and friends. Do also review us on whichever podcast app you listen to us on. If you're watching this on YouTube, do leave a comment to let us know what you would like to see us cover next. For more on all things road safety, please visit SaveLIFE Foundation's website at www.savelifefoundation.org or any of its social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you in the next episode, and in the meantime, drive safe, stay safe.
IVM